A very good morning, dear students. Today, let us discuss Kubla Khan by Samuel Taylor Coleridge. I had already discussed with you in the previous tutorial as to what romantic literature, romantic movement is all about. And in detail, obviously, your history teacher will be teaching you what romanticism is all about. And of course, you people are grown up enough since you are second semester students. You must have grown with literature to read certain things on your own, right? So, today I will be dealing with Kubla Khan. Now, as I already told you when I discussed the important aspects, that it is a dream vision. Why it is a vision in a dream, how Coleridge himself gives an account of this, and why it is a fragment, because it is disjointed. There is no connection with the first half of the poem and the next half of the poem. So it says, sorry, in Xanadu did Kubla Khan a stately pleasure doom decree. Decree is order karna, to order, and this man, this king, sorry, the famous Mongol emperor of China, that is Kubla Khan, he ordered to build a pleasure dome where now Alf is here it is saying a sacred river, but it is a mythical river, or you can say it is not a real river because it has been created by Coleridge in literature. It doesn't exist in reality, right? So let's start from the beginning. In Xanadu did Kubla Khan a stately pleasure dome decree, where Alf, the sacred river, ran through caverns measureless to man. Measureless, where human beings they can't reach. And caverns are deep gorges, hollow places in the earth, where we cannot go down deep into those caverns. Down to a sunless sea. Sunless because there the sun is not able to reach. So, twice 5 miles of fertile ground. 5 miles, let's say 10 miles of land there is, in which he ordered to build a pleasure dome, a palace for him, with walls and towers were girdled around. Girdled means they were walled around. There was fence all around. And there were gardens bright with sinus rills. Now, what are these sinus rills? Rills are the streamlets, right? They are the streamlets, and sinuses means the zigzag. Small rivers, small cascades flowing here and there, where blossom many an incense bearing tree. Incense bearing, so the flowers or the trees that were growing over there, they had an aroma. There was a उनकी अपनी एक खुशबू थी, and at the same time it is also been said that some kind of spices were also grown over there, flowers and spices. That is why they had an aroma, they had a fragrance. And here were forests ancient as hills. Forest ancient as hills are, it means हम बोलते हैं as old as the mountains, because mountains are something that are what, they are immemorial, they are never gonna come to an end. So it जब हम पुराने बहुत ancient we want to mention too, so what do we say? We say as old as the hills, enfolding sunny spots of greenery. So wherever the sun is falling, there you have small sunny spots. So the places over there, they are bathed in sunlight. And when he says spots of greenery, it means there is grass all around. It is full of green grass. But oh, that deep romantic chasm which slanted down the green hill athwart a sedan cover. Sedan are your trees. Sorry. Can I just reduce? Yeah, that will be better. Okay. Yeah. So, sedan are your cedar trees. My pen was too thick. It was spreading. And athwart means across, right? So, till till here, let us say, here there is complete reference to the pleasure house or the palace that has to be uh, built, that has been ordered to be built by our king, right? And in the next half, he is telling us about the other aspects. Now, what he says, what Coleridge says, down the green hill, athwart a sedan cover, so many trees were there. A savage place, savage किसको बोलते हैं? Savage is wild, as holy and enchanted. Holy, you all understand. Enchanted is there is prevalence or there is presence of something supernatural. That is what is enchanted. As ever beneath a waning moon was haunted. देखिए waning moon क्या होता है? Waning is the declining phase. जब moon full moon होने के बाद it starts declining and towards the end it is very small, like जिसको हम something like this. I'm very poor in drawing. Okay, so waning moon was haunted by women wailing for her demon lover. So now the reference has come to the demon lover. And please remember over here, I forgot to mention what are these chasms. These are, when you have these hills, when they break into two, say for example, two hills and one hill, sorry, and like this there is this mountain, and when it will break there will be a chasm. That is what a chasm is, when a mountain breaks into two. So the depth below will be too much, it will be too deep, right? So now he's telling us what? By women wailing for her demon lover. And for this chasm with ceaseless turmoil seething, turmoil is confusion, ceaseless is never ending, and seething is boiling, right? Now he's telling us about a fountain that is there, what is happening over there, also the river. As if this earth in fast thick pants समझते हैं, panting over here, of course breathing, were breathing, a mighty fountain momently was forced. So there was a fountain amid whose swift half intermitted burst means in shortest intervals, in very small intervals the water was coming out, small intervals. Huge fragments vaulted like rebounding hail. Hail, ओले जिसको हम बोलते हैं वो, and what was coming out like hail or chaffy grain. chaffy grain ये आप सबने देखा हुआ है, जब हम ग्रेन को शाफ से अलग करते हैं तो वो जो उसके छिलका जैसे उड़ता है, that gets separate, that is the chaff. Beneath the thresher's flail, his machine. And mid these dancing rocks at once and ever, it flung up momently the sacred river. So, what is happening in the second half is that he is telling us about the after explaining us about the landscape, he is telling us about the deep gorge where there is a fountain, right? And he's also telling us that it is enchanted. Where is it? Which means there has been a magical spell on it. And he says that the time of the night is such that he feels as if it is, the moon is like a sickle, the moon is like सिक्कल होती है दराटी, है ना, छोटा क्रेसेंट मून, मुझे वर्ड याद आ गया इंग्लिश में जो बोलते हैं क्रेसेंट. I hope most of you must be aware of what crescent moon is like. So there he says a woman is sitting and she's wailing for her demon lover. And then he is explaining you about a fountain. Fountain अगर आप लोगों ने देखा है, so you have to raise your imagination that a fountain is flowing and the water is coming out slowly, small intervals the water is coming, And along with that water, there are small stones, let us say small stones like hail. तभी ओले के साथ compare कर रहे हैं, hail he's saying. So that is also coming out from the fountain. Clear? Now he says 5 miles meandering with a mazy motion. How the river goes? Like this, right? Mazy motion. Meandering, इसी movement को meandering बोलते हैं. Okay? Through wood, that is forest, and dale, all over green. The dale is valley. The sacred river ran. Sacred river? Which river are we talking of? Alf. Then reach the caverns, measureless to man. And caverns are deep gorges, and sank in tumult, confusion, to a lifeless ocean. And amid this tumult, Kubla heard from far ancestral voices professing war. Profess karna kya hota hai? Forecast. They can see that a war might take place. Okay? The shadow of the doom. Okay, this goes on next. So over this part, he is telling you about the landscape and the imagery and everything, right? After this, over here, he is describing us what he's describing till here, the course of the river Alf. Okay, and then he is telling about the professing of the war in these particular lines. So, there it says that this idea from where it comes, that when Coleridge was reading that Purchaser's Pilgrimage, I told you the inspiration of the book, right? Which he was reading, and then he had made a poem of almost 400 lines in his dream, but when he woke up, he could write only these 54, 56 lines. So, through this voice, which he's saying that he could hear his ancestors, they are warning him about the war that is likely to take place in the future. So, the king Kubla Khan, he heard this voice, and the ancestors were warning him about wars ahead. Now, the idea was suggested by the poet's reading. Obviously, the poet had read something, that is Coleridge. The priest of Kubla Khan and the holy men of Abyssinia both prophesied about war. And Coleridge had lately been writing against the war with France. It may be noted that ancestor worship was a vulnerable custom in China as well as in Japan. And Coleridge was particularly fond of airy and supernatural in his poetry. So this reference to ghostly spirits warning the king about wars ahead is a typical touch of what we call supernatural. Okay? Not just this, not just the prevalence of ancestors, but everything, this doom in itself. अगर आप इस palace को बारे में सोचो, if you just think about it and if you just imagine this kind of a palace, can it really exist? No, it has so many supernatural effects because something like this cannot be present in reality. Number one. And number two, I have also made an attempt to search, किसी ने कुछ create किया होगा, somebody must have done, made let us say, a sketch of Kubla Khan's palace or something, but unfortunately I could not get it. Otherwise, I would have loved to share it with you. वो छोटी छोटी images हैं, but that doesn't explain that why such kind of a palace is not possible. Okay, so let's go ahead. Now, in these lines, Coleridge, he's describing the magnificent pleasure house of Kubla Khan as it stood in front of the sea. So, the shadow of doom of pleasure floated midway on the waves. So, the image of the palace is falling on the let me use the correct word. Reflection can be seen in the river. Where was heard the mingled measures, mixed sounds from the fountain and the caves. It was a miracle of rare device, a sunny pleasure dome with caves of ice. Now you see, this is something contradictory or contrary, let me say. How? Sunny and ice, right? You are saying the dome is totally sunny, but the caves it has is all full of ice. So what it means over here, the reflection that is seen in the sea, and then the reflection lay suspended halfway down before the surface. It stood within hearing of the blended music. The building itself was surpassing beauty and seemed to be hardly the work of human hands. So it was not possible for a human hand to make such a dome, make such a palace. It was nothing short of a miracle. The palace in itself was a miracle. Remember this. Its dome overhead was bright and warm with sunlight, right? The dome. And below, however, the halls built with marble, white and marvelous cool, there seem to be so many what? There seem to be so many caves of ice. Okay? So, first we discuss the landscape. Coleridge tells us about the landscape, then he tells us about the river, the course of the river, then the prevalence of the ghost of the ancestors, and then he tells us about the miracle doom which was being built. Now, this is very significant. Why? Because whatever we have studied above from this line has no connection to what comes next. Abrupt. The poem is not abrupt, but there is no connection with the first part. And now, as we are moving to the second part, a damsel with a dulcimer, a musical instrument, in a vision once I saw. It was an Abyssinian maid. Abyssinia is the old name for Ethiopia. Okay, Abyssinia. From there, it comes to be Abyssinian maid. And Mount Abora is again a fictional place that has been created by Coleridge. So, while describing Kubla Khan's magnificent palace, Coleridge switches off to this image of whom? Of the damsel. That is the Abyssinian maid. And what it has been said that Coleridge, he had once a vision of this maid, Abyssinian maid, playing an instrument most ravishly. She sang to the accompaniment of a dulcimer about the manifold charms of her native haunt of Mount Abora. The poet heartily wishes to capture her heart and inspiration. He would then make a new dream place in the air with the power of this song. So, the song which the maiden was singing, which this beautiful damsel was singing, he wants to take inspiration from that and create a poem of its own. That is what he wanted to do, right? That is why it has been said, जहाँ हम critics का पढ़ते हैं या हम पढ़ रहे हैं कि sources की हम बात करते हैं, या Coleridge himself is giving us the account that he had written in dream around 500 lines. But then this is what was the fragmented outcome. But then it is known as is one of the best poems as such. So जब हम आप नेक्स्ट पढ़ोगे लास्ट फ्यू लाइन्स जो ये बची हैं, देन यू विल बी एबल टू कनेक्ट व्हाट ही इज ट्राइंग टू से. Could I revive within me her symphony, the music and the song that she was singing? He wanted to do what? He wanted to recall that song. To such a deep delight it would win me, that with music loud and long, I would build that doom in the air. So with this particular music, with this song, he will build a doom in the air. That sunny doom, those caves of ice. अब यहाँ फिर भी थोड़ा mention है, you can connect to what goes previous. And all who heard should see them there, and all should cry, beware, beware, his flashing eyes, his floating air. So after explaining everything in these last few lines, Coleridge, he turns to the power of poetry. He turns to the vision of poetry. And that is what he's trying to explain over here. So he says, he turns, okay, so what he is telling us, he longs to refresh his memory of that music and song. By that means, he could work himself up to fine frenzy of the poet. He would create a new that pleasure house in the sky by the power of his song and music, power of poetry. The splendid building, complete with all its marvelous features, and the white and charming cool halls of alabaster and marble. And all should cry. So, what he says here, he all of a sudden changes his theme from the description of the pleasure dome to the power of poetry. So he says he would become what? He would become an apparition. Apparition हम वैसे ghost को बोलते हैं, हाँ? A ghost like apparition, ghost like image. थोड़ा सा अपनी इमेजिनेशन को इंक्रीज करें आप, तो हम जैसे वी ऑफन से दीज पीपल, यू नो, हॉन्टेड पीपल, नॉट हॉन्टेड पीपल बट पीपल हु आर इनटू दिस ब्लैक मैजिक एंड एवरीथिंग, तो वो अपने आप को वैसे पोर्ट्रे कर रहे हैं कोलरिज, यू नो, दैट he will appear like a apparition, his flashing eyes totally red, his hair floating in the air. So you can imagine that he would obviously look like a demon, a ghost. Weave a circle round him thrice and close your eyes with holy dread. Holy dread hota hai fear, out of fear. So he would look like a strange apparition and inspire people to be around him. They would look with awe and wonder at his eyes. They would give him a wide berth and draw magic circles. Weave circle है ना ये, weave circle. So if you see a person who has been affected by necromancy or black magic, you build a circle around him so that he doesn't comes out of that circle and harms you. So what he says, so people will fear him and they will build a circle around him, for he on honey dew hath fed, because he had drunk the what we call the nectar or honey, nectar of, wait, AR, nectar of heaven, which it is calling the milk of, and drunk the milk of paradise. So he would look like someone who is possessed, whose food is not the food of ordinary men, but something exotic like honeydew or some heavenly stuff of the class of manna. Manna is nothing but manna is your, what we call, this nectar of heaven. Okay, so this is what he is trying to tell over here, that if he is able to remember or recall the song which this particular Abyssinian maid was singing, and with the help of this he could create a poetic vision. By creating a palace in the air simply means that he would create another poetry, he would build another palace in air. Okay, so what you have to remember is that the poem is fragmented, already said. I told you, vision in a dream, because he was under the he was taking anodyne, and under its influence, whatever he saw in the dream he could not recall because he was disturbed by somebody. Now, first, over here, the landscape, the pleasure dome, and everything is being explained. In the part 2, we come to know that there is hardly any connection between the two parts, because simply where we can see explanation of the landscape or explanation of the pleasure dome in the first half, in the second half, Coleridge talks of power of poetry. Coleridge talks of power of creativity. He talks of power of imagination. You know how the power is there, because just by recalling the song of the maid, he would do what? He would build a castle, a dome in the air, which means he would have written another poetry, which would be matchless, of course. Okay, so this is the explanation of the poem Kubla Khan. I have already taken up the introduction and the sources, etc., in the class also, and also in the tutorial, the last tutorial which I had taken up, right? So, this is all for today. Thank you so much.